Welcome to Psychic Insights, where pop culture meets higher consciousness and the tea is always a little bit mystical. I'm Robin Richardson, your psychic girlfriend, and around here we don't just watch the drama unfold. We read the energy behind it, whether it's celebrity scandals, reality TV, chaos, or true crime with a twist. I'm tuning in to bring you the intuitive scoop, the headlines miss. So buckle up, because your aura's about to get entertained. Again, slow on the go. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Robin Richardson, your psychic girlfriend. Man, this case just gets more and more interesting to me. But this is part 2 of my psychic deep dive, insights, opinions into the mind of Jan Black, the mother's mind. So part 2. If you didn't see part 1, go check it out. As you might know by now, Jan Black, otherwise known as Elizabeth Naylor, is Laura Owens' mom. And we covered in part 1 her astrology, her human design, her shadow patterns, and how she holds the family narrative together. But in this part, we're going to go deeper, and we're going, because the real story really isn't about Jan, and it's not really even about Laura. It's about this energetic bond between them that feels generational and karmic and even inevitable. And I just finished listening to echoes from the cubbyhole, tabernacle, whatever, And while I was listening, some things really kind of popped up for me around Jan and Laura. And I think this is going to be pretty interesting, our little insights about her. I'm going to share it now because otherwise I'll forget. So my thought was, I wonder if Jan trapped Ron with a pregnancy scam herself. That popped in my mind about how manipulative Jan is and how her human design, her story, her astrology lends itself to really, being in control of a narrative. And Megan Fox had mentioned that sources had told her that Ron had they had separated, and this is at some point, and Ron seemed happier. And I really kind of, along the energy of this case, I did wonder if Laura learned from her mother how to go about doing this stuff, and why Ron went back. So there's some questions here that we may never get the answers to, the facts to. But energetically, it feels like Jan's patterns have been very similar, if not the same as Laura's. So I feel like there's a soul contract that Jan and Laura have, maybe past lives if you're into that. But Jan and Laura play these roles. The mother is the protector and the daughter is the disruptor, and one holds the secrets and one exposes the truth, and one stabilizes and one destabilizes. And in this lifetime, this family pattern is at a breaking point. And we're just seeing the crumbling of this family's legacy, which I feel Ron and Jan have created some illusion around. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Ron was a significant figure in San Francisco radio history. But Jan, we're not really so sure that she was as notable, let's say, as he is. So it makes a lot of sense that Laura would be taking on that mantle of trying to be something more than she is, right? So let's talk about the astrology and how, because their placements really do tell a story. So Jan carries the signature of someone who protects at all costs, controls the narrative, fears chaos more than truth, compartmentalizes, and leads with logic over emotion. And her chart just screams, I will keep this family intact even if it breaks me to do it. I think it was mentioned on Megan's episode as well that each parent had kind of a favorite, and Ron seemingly his favorite was Sarah, and Jan's was Laura. And this makes a lot of sense with their astrology, right? We haven't looked into Sarah's yet, so we will be doing that. We, meaning me. I don't got a team here yet. Okay, so Laura's energy is emotional volatility, identity instability, needing someone stronger to anchor to, rebelling when she feels trapped, and pulling others into her emotional storms. And together, Jan's fear of collapse meets Laura's need to be smooth, and the cycles become unbreakable. So this is why we see Jan seemingly to support Laura in her schemes. And I had to ask myself the question, because Jan fuses and thinks that Laura's or any of her children's emotions are hers, I'm wondering if she's fighting for herself on some level, to be seen, to be heard, to be supported, to be loved. But when we talk about the human design, when we overlay their human designs, that it becomes even clearer about these two. Jan's defined centers create a structure and a sense of, I know what's right, I hold the ground. And this could mean supporting Laura when she filed her FBI cyberbullying report, which led to the FBI calling the Scottsdale police to do a wellness check. It could be that, right? And Laura feels much more open, but she absorbs the environment, she absorbs emotions, and she absorbs stories. So what could happen here? Well, Jan absorbs Laura's panic and tries to control it. Laura absorbs Jan's fear and spirals harder, as we saw in her body cam footage. Like, she was losing her crap to her mother, and her mother just sat there, right? And almost affirmed her. You're right, honey. Like, just for me as a mom, and we'll get into this later, it blew my mind, but stay tuned for that. That's just a little bit about me and Jan and how, I'll get to it. So keep going. All right. So what's happening here is we have this energetic fusion. So it's not really support. And it's why their boundaries disappear and why the lines blur and why the narratives gets tangled. And that's why I think we see Jan at the horse show. Like, she knows very well that her daughter is supposed to be somewhere else, but yet doesn't care that, just wants to keep the image of my daughter's still riding her horses, doing her thing, winning $150 or whatever. So I tuned into their energetic cord. What I see is with their solar plexus, and if you don't know chakras, the solar plexus is really, sort of like the middle where the action is, where the egos are, right? And it's the emotional fusion here. And with the throat right here, they have this shared narrative. And that's what made me wonder if their shared narratives stem from Jan's past and Laura's present. Well, near past, like short past, and now, real present. And their root chakra, which is all connected to survival and loyalty and fear and tribe, like being part of this family. And this is deep, deep, deep enmeshment. It's not just mother-daughter stuff. It's karmic, it's ancestral, it's generational. And I think that Jan feels responsible for Laura's emotional stability, and Laura feels entitled to Jan's protection. And it might be criminal, we'll see, but right now it's energetic. Okay, so like when I look at Jan, I get this sort of confusion. Like, I know what I'm doing, but yet I'm not really aware of how this is playing out in reality. Like, I'm not believing the reality of these 7 felonies. It's almost like there's denial here, which is deep. And it comes across as entitlement, like we don't have to listen to that. Like, this is going to go away in some way. Like, we have to protect the image. So I kind of wanted to know, like, what the emotional storm was before this trial happens in January, supposing that it happens in January. But let's call it, like, sometime in 2026, okay? So the energetics leading to this trial is Jan's holding the story together. She's projecting some calm, but internally she's collapsing. And she is terrified of the consequence, but she keeps pressing it down, because the biggest terrifying factor for her is losing the narrative and losing her daughter. With Laura, it feels obviously destabilizing. She's overwhelmed. She's reaching for her familiar anchors. She's emotionally reactive, which we've seen, and she's spiraling. And she might be doing that in private because the public, she's been muzzled to some degree by her criminal attorney. Not that she necessarily listens. And I think when she was assigned this attorney or group, I really still feel she has a big issue with Sandra, or whoever is the person that's really handling this case, because Sandra is not taking shit from her. But the vibe before the trial feels really compressed, and it feels like the pressure is building like one of those Instant Pots. And when I was working on this episode, I was like cooking something in my Instant Pot. I'm like, that's what it feels like, pressure cooker. Which makes sense, right? For anybody, it would be a pressure cooker. All right, so during the trial, I do see this. Their bond hits a cracking point. And Jan tries to remain stoic. Her control is slipping. Her explanations stop landing. The weight of decades of emotional fusion start to fracture. And Laura becomes the center of chaos. And Jan looks smaller, quieter, and more isolated. And it's the first time in Laura's life where Jan can't fix this. She can't cover it, and she can't control it. And this is where this karmic contract starts to dissolve. So then I asked, like, after the trial, what will happen? Like, what is the kind of the energetic shifts? And with Jan, and I saw isolation. I see that she withdraws emotionally, socially, internally. And this is her reckoning point. Her identity collapses. She's no longer the protector. And her question becomes, who am I if I'm not fused or saving my daughter? And there's going to be an emotional confrontation. And this is the part she has avoided all her life. And her chart shows a lifelong pattern of emotional suppression, and the trial forces it to the surface. So we see a breakdown in Jan. And some people have suggested that she may, turn on Laura, or throw her under the bus in some way. And while I see this relationship fracturing, I feel like she may be forced to. to save herself. So this should be interesting. As the trial gets closer, we'll take another look at what the energy suggests at that point. But this is what is really fascinating to me, like why I see all of this pretty clearly. And I'm going to add this personal part. So if you're not interested in that, just, go about your day. All right. So Jan is a Leo sun and a Scorpio moon. And I'm a Scorpio sun and a Leo moon. And Scorpio sees, so it's direct opposite. And I don't know why it occurred to me, just like, look. So like to go, oh, what does this mean? But Scorpio sees the shadow behind the shadow, and Leo moon reads the emotional truth like a spotlight on a stage. So that's what I'm doing. And I don't need really the birth charts or the documents because I do feel the truth, and I read the patterns, and I see through people's coping strategies. And I know when a story doesn't match the energy. And that's why I feel like this case has been compelling to me since day one. And so in part one, we asked who's the mother, and part two answers that, why the mother is emotionally bound to her daughter's chaos. And the truth about this is their souls wrote a contract long before this lifetime. And as the trial becomes closer, the moment of this contract dissolving comes closer. So in part three, we are going to go a little deeper. We are going to talk about Laura's destiny path, her shadow, her psyche, her karmic patterns, and her collapse, and possible redemption, which I'm not holding my breath on her redemption, but this will be interesting. So, and we need to look at Sarah too. So I'm collecting some, I'm trying to get her birth date. So if anybody has that, please direct message me or put it in the comment section. So do I think Jan is the accomplice? I think she may be one of them. And I don't know if she'll be legally charged for that. But I do think that there are going to be some more charges coming, and it could include her. And it also could include some other things around the Owens financial situation. But I do feel like there might be a few more charges coming in this criminal case. And, it just gets more interesting every day. It really does. It really does. So what are your thoughts? Do you see the energy between Laura and her mother in the way that I'm doing that? Do you sense that? Do you feel that? Because I feel like as a mother, I parented my kids a little differently because of my astrology and my human design. And at the end of the day, both Laura and Jan remind me of patterns that I grew up with. Not quite to this degree, not criminally, but manipulatively, that I had a mother that was very similar. And I find it fascinating. So that's it for this episode. Thank you again for supporting my work. Thank you for the shout outs I get from other content creators. And if you haven't seen them, go to Megan Fox, go to Justice for Clayton, go to Echoes from the Tabernacle, amongst others. There's so many, Laura Knighty, Bruce the Moose. Like there's so many that you could just get down this. And it started with Dave Neal. So, go and support him if you don't, and go support them if you haven't. And like and subscribe and share with a friend who might be interested in this kind of content. And I'll see you in the next one, because there will be a next one.